Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Lethal Sales. We're so happy you're here tonight. Our topic that we return to every so often because things are always changing. Tonight, we're talking about EVs and what's new in the EV market, EV technology, EV sales, EV PR. And I think I'll start with Peter because I shut him down a little earlier and asked him to hold that thought.
Well, believe it or not, I am an EV fan. I think they have their place. I think they have opportunity. I think they're great for certain circumstances. Beyond that, I'm a realist, and I believe that everyone should have a choice. I understand working for a company such as Volvo for many years and them being one of the most sustainable automobile companies in the world. In their own testing, they said an EV doesn't pass carbon neutrality until 140,000 miles. And that's on the average.
Interesting.
Some are higher, some are lower. Now that's the average. So if the average car lasts on the road for how many miles before it is actually destroyed, where is the carbon neutrality of an EV? That's one thing. So that's the first side of it. The second side of it is who owns and who controls the critical mass in mineral industries. Well, right now, China owns about 85% of what goes into the chemical composition of an EV battery. So, who's benefiting? We do not have battery plants in North America. And guess what? With all the governments giving away money, especially my government gives away money faster than yours. All the plants in Canada that they gave billions of dollars to these companies are all shutting down. The biggest Ford manufacturing plant in Canada is the Oakville plant, and that was scheduled to build Ford's 3-row electric vehicle. It is now being retooled for something else because they're not building it anymore. So have EVs lost their steam? Well, you could say yes, you could say no. The numbers say it's still increasing, but are they increasing at the mass numbers that they are? The question I have is really, has the early adopters gone and absorbed all the sales? And is that who's there? Why do we have, and whether you're a Tesla fan, a Rivian fan, Lucid, BYD, VinFast, Polestar. Let's look at Fisker. Look at all the ones that have climbed and failed. Look at all the ones that were at their peaks, like Tesla, and now because of legacy competition, have fallen down, yet still have the profitability that they can be more profitable than a ICE car. There's all kinds of things. So there's so much to unpack and so much to unravel here. We have Tony, who's at a Toyota dealership. We got Jason, who's at a Mercedes dealership. You have Andrew, who is a advocate and doing his Voltage Hero platform to help dealers that are suffering with their EV knowledge. And that's something I'm a big advocate of, because let's put the actual plain and simple of it. Whether it's 10%, 20%, 30%, 50%, whatever the number is, would you throw that amount of your profitability out the window at a dealership just because you don't like something? It's an asinine thought. So why not bring in someone like Andrew and BEV Everything Consulting and teach your teams how to be not advocates, but knowledgeable on what a EV is. It makes absolute sense. And I mean absolute sense. So it doesn't matter what our own individual opinions are, because we're just, and if we were here, we're 12 people out of 340 million people in the United States, 12 people out of 40 million in Canada. We're just a small grain of sand in the giant beach. But it's actually, how can we look at it in a proper and professional way to help people make decisions that are beneficial to them? And with that, I would like to bypass my good partner Larry, and I'm going to put it to Andrew, because I think Andrew deserves a voice before he gets piled on by all the ice drivers on this call. So go ahead, Andrew.
Look, man, I think you hit like a ton of great points, man. And I think that the overarching point that I would say that has plagued the industry currently is the amount of feelings about the topic. And I stress the word feelings because it's really what it comes down to. Right?
Absolutely.
I mean, if we remove feelings out of this, man, like just another car.
Exactly.
You know, a different type of technology, just like, hydrogen's been tested out, just like electric has been done before. It's just been astronomically polarized with feelings, I think, from the powers above us on purpose to drive agendas, right? And I think that that's been the critical issues, that they've turned a product that has a market clearly by numbers, right? I'm the first one to say that, I'll never go by like percentages and targets that people say. Growth is growth and a loss is a loss. That's it. Right? Mm-hmm. So whether it's growing 30%, 40,
down.
Yeah, like whether it's growing 30% or you're gonna hit a number by 2030, all that's BS. Like I don't really play too much tune into that. But what I do know, if it's growing year over year, that's all that matters. Right?
Exactly.
So what I'll say, man, I think that, if we can remove feelings out of this conversation, I think that we're always going to be all on the same page, because this isn't even really about sides. We're all one industry. We're all trying to win. I mean, we created the company that we have to help everybody compete as fairly as possible and sell their best version of a vehicle. That's it. That's what it comes down to.
Absolutely, Andrew. And where I would add to it, most people are ignorant, and I'll use the term ignorant because they've never driven an EV. They've never sat behind the wheel of one. They've never touched one. They've never charged one. They've never done anything involved in that is with an EV. You take people and you say, well, what does it make you make that decision? And this is where I'm going to lead into Tony for a second, is Tony made his decision based on opportunity because it was there. Correct, Tony? And what was your thought process your first day, your third day, your 10th day, and now?
Day one, it was a financial no-brainer. I mean, they made this so attractive that I would have been a fool to say no.
Correct.
Day two, I thought, did I do the right thing? And then I looked back to day one and I said yes, because even if I never drive the thing for what I pay, it cost me more to put cable TV in my house than what it cost me to drive this. Number one. So day three, I looked back to day one, and now I love driving this car. It is so much fun. It's fast. It's quiet. The amount of tech that's in this thing for the money. But this car has been around for about, I think this is the second year. It's a Toyota BZ4X, and they did an unbelievable lease program. But when this car came out almost 2 years ago, I looked at it and I thought, that's an odd looking car. I don't know if I like it. And then the more I looked at it and I drove it around the lot, I was like, this car's a lot of fun. And then I thought, if it ever becomes affordable, I'm going to give one a try. And it did, and I did. And I don't regret it one bit. But now, if I were paying what this car demands in terms of a lease payment, if I was paying that $600-700 a month, hell no, it ain't going in my driveway. So I agree that, and I think we all do, that when these things become quote unquote affordable, they're going to sell like wildfire. They're going to sell like hotcakes. And the more dealers start to overcome the range anxiety by the manufacturers extending the range, or the dealers being creative. For example, I spoke with one Toyota store that one of the things they're doing is if their customer needs a car for a longer trip, they're throwing them in a track car, no charge, and let them take that for that longer trip and bring it back. But for the average consumer, how many of us drive 250 miles one way or a day? Not many of us, right? I don't even charge this car once a week. So I'm jacked about it. I think it's a great car. I love the technology. And, I put my politics behind me. And, you said it's this emotional thing, and I learned two things in life. Number one is don't make it personal. Number two is don't take it personal. And
Bingo.
that's the way I've looked at this whole
Now,
electric vehicle deal.
Jason, on being from Mercedes and having all the EQ series cars, at the beginning, they were in demand.
They were.
And where are they now?
60 grand off, and still nobody wants to buy one.
Give them 70.
No, I think
60,999.
Like I think what Tony's saying is a great point. When they become affordable, they will take off. They will have a mass amount of people that go along with them. As far as the training is concerned with the EV everything, I think it's a great service. I think for dealers that don't have massive electric influence on the market, you need to have somebody like you to come in and train them to be able to educationally talk about what they're selling. Fortunately, I work for a factory dealer that is very, very intensely training the staff and sending people over to Alabama to do massive EV training on a monthly basis, which is great. At what cost? Are we really going to be selling that many? Is it really that forefront of a product for our store? Where I'm located in Hilton Head, I can tell you no, it's not. There's no infrastructure here for the electric. And I agree with Tony's point. How many people drive 200 miles a day, whatever. I get that part. My thing is when you're staring down the eyes of a category 3 or a category 4 hurricane, okay, and you want a GTFO, okay, all right, and all your EV buddies are all on the same highway, you guys are all going to the same damn place to stop, you're not getting out of the way of the damn storm. You got to leave 5 days before they even tell you to evacuate to get out of here on time, because you're going to be stuck in traffic. There is an economical impact when it comes to those sort of things on some of these cities, these coastal areas, that you're not going to be able to sell them. Or you sell them the car, but then they still have to have a nice car to get out of Dodge if they need to. But then what do they leave behind? The EV car. And how many insurance claims are you going to have? How many total losses are you going to have? How much is it going to cost to replace those vehicles? And we all know insurance companies, like healthcare, it's so great and awesome that they spread that cost over everybody. So the impact of the cost, the materials, the replacement of those expensive batteries and the disposal of them, and where are they going to go? How are you going to, how many battery recycling plants do we have? I know Mercedes is building one for their product, right? So where are these batteries going to go? Where are they going to sit? Is there a cost to the environment associated with that? Has anybody really thought this out that's buying these cars that wants to be the green person? The answer is no. They're buying it for the affordability reason because somebody's throwing a crap ton of money at them and buying a payment. But at the end of the day, there's insurance companies now that don't want to cover EVs because of the replacement cost. The downtime for an accident for a lot of these EVs is immensely long. Now you have people without the car, or they have to be renting an ICE car to drive for the 8 months that their car's in the body shop or whatnot. There's so many other factors we could talk about, the impracticality of what is there with the EV product, because there's no infrastructure, there's not a huge support system to back them up right now that we're not thinking about. Do I love the product? Do I think it's great? Yes, I do. I think the EQS AMG drives like a bat out of hell. I think it drives phenomenal. It's one of the most gut-wrenching, like punch you in the face quicknesses that you can have out of a sports car. And nobody wants it.
Well, I'll tell you what. Andrew asked me a while back what favorite EV was, and I said the Spectre, until Mercedes brought out the new G-Wagon electric, where it can spin around in circles by itself.
Yeah,
I like that one for road rage.
We get our first one, I think, in a couple of weeks, actually.
Hey guys, let's do a couple things. First of all, I commend Andrew and of course my boys John Ellis and Duran, because what they're trying to do is educate people to sell that segment or sell off of that segment or sell through that segment, which I love. Two pieces of history, one personal and one American history. But shortly before we sold the dealership, we became a Mitsubishi dealer. And for anybody that doesn't know, Mitsubishi put a financing program together that almost put them out of business.
It ruined them.
Yep. And their concept was to come back. Now, if you've ever driven a Mitsubishi, it's a great car. They really designed a good car. But the geniuses in charge of Mitsubishi at that point, and I mean that as facetiously as possible, what did they come back with? The Eclipse. Not a four-door, not a sedan, the Eclipse. And the problem is there's a limited market for Eclipses or Corvettes or a Z car. In terms of American history, in the 20s, they got together and decided it's immoral to drink. So they were going to make moral decisions for everybody else. And they instituted prohibition. And what prohibition resulted in was the rise of crime. Okay, it's what helped make what Al Capone would be today the equivalent of a billionaire with his own fiefdom. I happen to think EVs are pretty cool. I don't personally own one, and I know the people that have them, like John Ellis, are fanatical about them. Tony Thorstad's over the moon about it. My problem was always that they demanded, well, we're going to make everybody drive them, which makes no sense. And Peter's point is correct, that we're in a death battle with China. And not only do they have most of the materials, and I'm sorry if I'm getting a tiny bit political, but it's the truth. The idiots that are in charge of our country restricted what we could mine. So it's the old thing. If you want to drive an EV, drive a damn EV. They're fast, they're interesting, they're cool. Who's more of a genius than Elon Musk? Look at what he instituted and what he did. But the idea that they were saying everybody has to drive them and mandating them. Then, Andrew, when you combine, you're ruthlessly efficient. Yep. Okay, for anybody who doesn't know, John Ellis and Duran brought him in. The guy's smart, he's capable, and he's just reasonable. He's not the kind of guy that's going to curse you out because you didn't say anything bad about EVs. But when you throw that into the mix of incompetence, I don't know the exact figure. I bet Peter does. He's more of the stat guy than I am. How many billions of dollars did they spend to put 7 or 8 chargers across the country?
It was 7.5 billion for 8 chargers.
Right.
Yeah, listen, they could have paid me 10 grand, and I would have put up 7 chargers, and I would have taken Scott Trainor out for a steak sandwich. I mean, now that he's almost an American, let's feed him good, you know? I mean, how much bacon can you eat in Canada? The point is,
lots.
These cars, no kidding, these cars are terrific. And the people that want them love them. And so I don't care how eloquent you are. I'm a pretty good talker. You can't talk John Ellis out of his electric car, but you can't force it down everybody else's throat. So the intelligent, measured response is, let's train the people to do what they have to do and how they have to do it. Let's build up let's keep it as a segment, because the people that have them do love them. But I just think the craziness was that a certain segment of our government said everybody's got to drive them. You have to do away with the other ones, and I think that was unrealistic.
You know,
But-
Larry, to your point, I think it was Kevin Deutsch the other morning that said for the bulk of us, we're all married, we have relationships or whatnot. Like if you went to your husband, your wife, and said you will comply, what kind of response would you get from that person?
That's
If
what
I
Andy
went to-
was
if-
saying. It was
I mean,
Probably
if I
nobody would
went-
be on
yeah,
this call.
But
He
Jason,
got
no, it's
Schwer
like-
jar
What
out.
though?
wait, Jason,
You know what
Jason,
though?
wait a minute,
Buying
Jason,
a car, buying a
you can't
car
ask me
is
that,
not.
Tony, but he can't ask me that comply question because I'm Jewish and I own a lot of property, and my wife has the lawyer on speed dial and my life insurance certificate right over the microwave. Turns it on every time I walk by, just in case. But that's the
at
real
the end
deal.
of
But what's so sad is the people that have them love them. So
They
don't
do.
stop them from getting them.
Here's the
help
deal.
people.
Guys, this is not a lifetime commitment. I'm not marrying the damn thing. I'm driving it for a couple of years and moving on. I mean,
Yeah. Look,
what's we make it sound like it's a lifetime commitment. We're always going to drive an EV vehicle. Our friends and family are going to hate us. Damn the torpedoes. It's just a freaking car.
Tony,
Well-
you missed. I love you, but you missed my point. Of course, I feel that way, and so does Andrew and Scott and Jeff Scherer and everybody on the call. My argument was the government's concept was to say everybody's going to drive when we're doing
That's-
ICE, and that didn't make any damn sense.
that's the issue, and I think that
No,
that's
it's
what
not. It's not the government. It's a government.
yeah. I think that that's what it kind of like my opening statement was about, right?
Right.
It's that they figured out a way to tie this into an emotion and pin everybody against each other. And the ones
Exactly.
that are losing, honestly, are the customers and all of us in the industry. I mean, because to Peter's point, whether you want to lose 1% or 50%, I mean, you're still losing, right? And I need to go back to Jason's point because Jason said a couple things that I agree and disagree with respectfully, right? So, you know, when you talk about affordability, that's the way it's going to sell. I mean, there's no secret that used EVs are like on fire, right?
Oh yeah, 'cause they're
There's no
cheap.
secret. There's
Now
no
wait a minute.
secret.
Do you mean on fire? In
Yeah,
terms
let me be
of
careful how I say that.
price
well,
and
I can
demand, or
definitely
literally
the
on
fire's
fire?
only at the
not
Rivian
combustion
plant in
because-
Chicago.
Because
No,
this could take an
EV
ugly turn here. Bad enough
EVs
they
by
were
stats have
popsicles.
less fires than ICE vehicles. You can look
Listen
it
to
up.
me. It's
So,
bad enough they were popsicles in Chicago when they had that bad storm. Go ahead, my buddy.
so look, I mean, it's no secret, yeah, that the affordability is it, right? You know, they're just doing phenomenal. I mean, you look, I think it was last month's leasing, like 50% of EVs were leased, right? Because of all the incentives that are out there. So we know that affordability is the number one thing, followed by charging is the second, right? But you know, what I will disagree with is, you know, who wants to buy a Mercedes electric car even at $60,000 off? Well, I would venture to say that I can sell it to people, right? And I'm not saying me because of, you know, because it's me. I'm saying it's because there is a market for it.
Oh,
You think Bentley would have done a Spectre if there was no market?
Absolutely not. No.
Rhonda, mark this down. Andrew is trying to be a salesperson to work with Jason, and Peter wants to be the ambassador to China. I just want to make sure we're keeping track of the
No,
program.
look, I think that what it comes
Peter
down
jumped
to,
the
man,
wrong
is
border.
there's just a lot of unfortunately, right? There's a lot of things that play, and I won't pick on Mercedes, but I'll say this. I'll say any high luxury priced EV. There are things that you have to really consider when you're gonna invest that amount of money into the car, right? I mean, when I was at Tesla, I was selling $150,000 at the time Model S Plaids without somebody even looking at it.
Well,
How can that happen?
You're
It's not
probably
Elon
just selling.
Musk. It's not
You're,
Elon
you're
Musk,
selling. You're selling the
doing it.
allocations. You weren't even selling the cars at that point for 150K.
Exactly.
Point. You're selling the allocations to something that doesn't even exist, and
Right.
then those people were in turn flipping the allocations half the time.
Well,
so hey, Jason, that
later.
meant P.T. Barnum was replaced by Elon Musk. It's the ultimate sizzle versus the steak. I want it. I need it. Everybody else has it. Fear of missing out. Hey, listen, when you guys are done debating, the most reasonable guy on this damn show and one of my best buddies is Jeff Scherer. Jeff, when these two guys are done, can you jump in? Because I value your opinion, please.
Jeff went halfway. He bought a hybrid.
That's the smart move.
Well,
that's a sweet spot.
Isn't that what Toyota jumped to? Isn't that what a lot of them are
Well,
jumping to?
It
No,
is.
no. Go ahead and finish up, Andrew. I want to hear the rest of your point.
You're not in the call.
No, man. So look, so what I'll say, it's about what is being offered at the price point. I think is what it really comes down to. And I think that, there's so many things to compete right now in the market when it comes to EVs. Is somebody buying it because of technology? Is somebody buying it because of battery range? Is somebody buying it because of styling? This is where it gets a little bit more intricate. And having the conversations with the customers is really where the key is. And that's where I figured out that, being able to, sell a Mercedes EQS, which I know is a tough sell, right? But there is a market for it if you know that you can talk to that customer about it. Now, the strategies behind how they're being pushed by OEMs can be a huge player, I think,
Yep.
too, in the pro and con of the EV. So there's a lot of things that I think that being on both sides of the fence, like I've been at, that you can see objectively. Because I've said it before, and I think Peter's been on one of my calls where I said it, where, dealers really don't understand the advantage they have over an OEM that only does EVs. Like I don't think that it's really something that you can really realize how much of an advantage you have over a Tesla, over a Rivian, over all these guys. And it's just not being leveraged because you don't know it because that's what you're used to. But yeah, man. So I'll yield there so Jeff can talk.
And then after Jeff, we got our girl Wendy jumped on. Jeff, what do you think, my buddy?
So yeah, I mean, when I told my story probably a couple times to this group, but I was kind of set on plug-in hybrid because I said that's got the best of everything, and knew I wanted at least a hybrid. And then when Lexus came out with a plug-in, I said that's me. Granted, I couldn't find it, and I didn't want to wait 6 or 8 months to maybe get the color that I wanted. So, and I shared this with Peter, now having had it for a month, my wife would never plug it in. And the first time that she got stuck somewhere, I'd be meeting her at the courthouse steps. That's just the way it is, because, the right or wrong, and I don't think there's anything wrong with EVs. There's a ton of Teslas here in Denver, a ton. And, but I think it was forced on the dealers, to Andrew's point, because everybody wanted to be Tesla. And, all the production said, yeah, giddy up. Dealers didn't have a clue and still don't, to your point, Andrew.
Mhm.
And, it's become a sore spot because for both the consumers and the dealers, because the dealers aren't supporting it because they don't know how to put the puzzle pieces together. They don't know, and we talk about this a lot here, what is the different sales approach. Put the objections out there first, is Jeff's recommendation. Talk about, how easy it is and how you can get it charged everywhere. And to Tony's point, we left, you may need to charge it once a week, and it's not any longer or different really than getting gas. But anyway, I can make the argument for that. But I think it was forced on the dealers. And I think the consumers suffered as part of that, along with the dealers.
Well, I'll agree 100% with you, Jeff. Is how this was presented to the public, and I won't just say dealers. I'm going to say public, and the bad PR that went about it created the feelings, as Andrew said, that people used ignorance as their form of intelligence, and that will never win. You cannot have intelligence with ignorance. They do not mix. And knowing that, if I turned around and said, you know what, would you believe my Jeep 4xe Wrangler gets 55 miles to the gallon on average after 2,000 miles? People go, no way, impossible. And I'd say, I can show you it. I have a photograph of my trip computer showing that. Would you believe my Jeep 4xe Wrangler is faster than a 930 turbo Porsche? It is. I have the documentation to show you that.
I want the video.
Yeah, it's
Nice.
it is that's the factor of it. It's a 400 horsepower Jeep Wrangler. The original 930 was 230 horsepower. It is just, people are going on hearsay, and they're doing everything now as a dealer. And Jason, you're the last dealer on the call right now.
No boy.
Jason, would you like a 20% gain or a 20% loss in your overall revenue?
Clearly a gain.
Absolutely. So why do everything possible to avoid that gain? And that's what dealers are doing. And
Correct.
And Andrew is the first proponent of going across this country, showing that dealers are doing everything possible to avoid that gain.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked to dealers in Washington State, probably one of the greenest states in the nation, next to California. But Washington State is really ridiculous on how they look at things, and they're suffering with their EV population.
Sorry.
Go ahead. It's just Fred's
So,
navigation talking to him.
Let her now.
Mm.
You know,
Navigation's got their boxing gloves on.
I do agree with you, Peter. I do think dealers are doing everything that they can to not sell them. They don't want them. A lot of dealers don't
Right.
want them. And I think, you know, there's dealers that are fully embracing the EV movement, and rightfully so, because certain areas of our country do have the necessary infrastructure to handle the boom, as you would say, of people coming in wanting to do the electric vehicles. And I think those segments and those areas deserve to have the proper availability of those cars. And I think that the manufacturers, instead of just selling their idea or those cars to those particular areas, you run a game that you're playing, and you're sending them to these other places in which don't need them, don't have the infrastructure, are not set up for that kind of volume to do so, because you built too many of them. And, you know, for the people that are calling us at the dealership right now, it's nobody is local for these EVs. I mean,
Right.
we're fielding calls from, you know, New York, Chicago, Miami, and all of this stuff, which is crazy.
Well, here's one for you, and this is to go amongst all kinds of different platforms. When I was one of the leading salespeople in North America for the respective high-end, high-line brands that I worked with, and that included Jaguar, BMW, Mercedes, things like that, we come across a car that was virtually unsellable. And then the manufacturer would dump a $20,000 or $30,000 rebate on it to get off everyone's lot and balance out the books again. And one of the things we did is for example, you'd look at, say, a C43 customer and say, a C43, your payment's going to be hypothetically $1,200, $1,300. Well, I can put you in EQS for the same amount of money. It's a $60,000 more expensive car. Would that interest you? And then you become a hero to the person.
Correct.
that they look at it and they go, I can drive that for this. Yeah. And that is, again, qualifying the people that are there, meaning your staff members, to understand the switch cell. And the switch cell is so important when you're doing that. Just like when you're in a lot, and I'll give you an example. You go to a Ford lot, and they have a whole bunch of EMOX sitting around. They got 2.5 years supply of EMOX, and you're going to go look for a Explorer Sport. Hey, let's just jump in this EMOC and we'll go drive to the car and use it as a golf cart on the dealership and show people
Absolutely.
what it's like.
Peter,
And then get people on the wheels, get them in the seats. I just
Hey,
don't
Peter,
understand.
We're
Go ahead.
we're getting kind of deep in. Why don't we'll double back to Andrew and all the crew. Why don't we get some opinions from my buddy Dan McNamee, who's runs a dynamite used car lot, and Wendy and Mike Larkin. Get everybody involved. Whoever wants to go first, Mike, Wendy, Dan. Dad, looks like Dan's on Mike. Dan,
Well-
I'm assuming you're not pursuing a whole lot of EVs, and I'm not knocking anything, Andrew. I'm just
Well,
he's
I-
very up to date with his cars.
I just actually have two questions. I would be curious to see if there are any numbers out there for like second time EV buyers. Like if a guy buys one, what percentage come back to buy a second one?
Andrew,
That number's decreasing, or sorry, increasing, I should say. It used to be at 70% that would return to ICE. It is
Mhm.
now at 56% returning to ICE, which
Okay.
is 20% for EVs, continuing with EVs.
Gotcha. And my other question would be, as these, as a used car dealer, as these cars are getting older, I'm starting to see 13 Teslas in the market for 10 grand. At some point in the near future, is it going to be like a cash for clunker situation where, the car is worth 5 grand, but a replacement battery is 5 grand, so it's a total?
Well, Dan, you also have the government incentive for the used ones. So there's like the $4,000 credit, and I believe Andrew could probably correct me if I'm wrong here. But the U.S. government's got a $4,000 credit for used EVs under, I believe, $25,000 that have a certain percentage of the parts manufactured or what are derived from certain areas. So there's actually a lot of used EVs that are hitting the market right now, like Mitsubishi's. You got the Chevy Bolt or whatever one it is. A
Bolt
couple
and
of the
Bolt.
Hyundais. Yeah, the Hyundais. There's a Hyundai that's got the same qualification. I mean, and for me, being a used car manager at a Mercedes store, I've got to be. I want to carry more of them for the reason of being able to hide certain negative equities, because that is legit a free $4,000. That's $4,000 in cash to hide something if we could sell that car to a particular person or whatnot, which is an easy sell at the end of the day. If you think about it, if you got somebody that's flipped, whether it's a new car, a new EQ, or a new EV, or the pre-owned one, there's incentives available for those people depending if they meet certain requirements.
Yeah. And there's also a lot of state incentives too, right? Across multiple states that you can double dip into these prices. I mean, that's why the EV market for used cars is like blowing up. And Jason, I think, you mentioned about something about people calling and not being local, etc. But look, I mean, I think that I think the other thing about besides feelings, it's about egos, right? I think that's the other issue that there is with EVs in general. I think that everybody wants to do things their way, and that hasn't really worked out because an EV is not like a traditional ICE car. Not in the conversations with customers, not in how you produce them, not even how you make a profit on them. Because it took Tesla 17 years to turn a profit. OEMs think that they're going to go ahead and produce cars the way they've traditionally done them. They're going to make a profit overnight. And I think that's what's, that's one of the things that, rushing to get out into the market to compete against Tesla, I think really hurt, right? To
Agreed.
you guys' point
Agreed.
about the consumers being affected, that's what happened between the government mandating, OEMs trying to figure out how to meet these mandates. The consumers are the ones that got beat up, and then all the dealers got beat up because, like, okay, well, this is the only way forward based on what we're being mandated to do, right? But the issue is that the more dealers push back on not doing it, you're losing market share because now you got EV only dealerships popping up like candy stores
And I
all
think
over
to
the
your
US.
point, to your point, Tesla is not a car brand, or
Yeah,
a
it's
car
not.
manufacturer.
It's a
They're a data
technology. It's an
company.
AI and technology company
It's
that
a
makes
data
parts.
company. And if the manufacturers use that data that they could get from their consumers while driving the car, you would have a different light switch that would go off about what you're charging, why you're charging them, and how much you're charging them. Because the influential data you can get from these cars and these products is paramount to what the future could be for you as a manufacturer. You can
100%.
literally dissect that data, cultivate it, and you can then market to particular brands, people, or whatnot, and suck them in if you wanted to do so. But they're not thinking of it in the long-term game. They're
Jason,
thinking
that's
the
going to
right now.
require a paradigm shift in how these OEMs think.
Well,
Agreed.
that's the
Agreed.
issue. I think there's multiple paradigm shifts that need to happen for OEMs, because this is exactly why BYD is going to dominate, because they figured it out, and their OEMs are losing market share because of BYD. Not even about Teslas, because of BYD.
Yeah.
You know, and they figured out that no matter what my tariffs are or whatever, we're going to pursue this long-term game, because it's a long-term game to do that. And that's the really crappy part, is because we all love our OEMs, right? Like, we all have brands that we affiliate to just through a bunch of different reasons, and a lot of it is because of, you know, emotions, right? But
Exactly.
you know, I put
No, it's Andrew, it's not emotion, it's the wise wisdom they spread. Like, when I would call them and tell them I'm not selling enough cars, they would say, well, take more cars, that'll help. Hey, by
That's
the
the
way,
remedy.
I just realized, besides Wendy and my man Mike Larkin, we haven't heard from my boy Russell Hill. So Russ,
So-
Wendy, Mike, please.
I got to tell you, I got into this a lot of research on EV, just like I am AI and all the different things. There seems to, it's political. I'm just, anytime the government steps in and mandates this crap like this, okay, I lose and you lose, and we pay for it in taxes. I was totally opposed to EVs, but because of information and because I'm open, I'm okay with them. They have their place, just like anything. If you it's just the freaking politics of it all, and the infrastructure, and the fact that we're not thinking about, you know, it is beyond me. This is a clear example. Okay. In 3 years, we still have 499,090 charging stations to install. I mean, this is freaking ridiculous. And other than that, I mean, I'm okay. I think you're on to something, Andrew, with what you're doing. It's so misrepresented. Salespeople don't know what they're talking about. They're ticking they're here to stay. They're not going anywhere. They're going to evolve and change, and they're going to find their niche. But there's a lot of other things that personally I struggle with, like the minerals, the recycling. We have 3 power grids, and they're all wide open to major attacks. As a matter of fact,
Russell, how about they wanted to make all the trucks mandatorily electric? Yeah. And they sense now that they would be so heavy, they'd have to rebuild and re-abut the bridges to get them to support.
There's just the roads in general.
One thing that not too long ago, because there's many other countries light years ahead of us on the amount of EVs that are in their market, and I think it's Norway.
Norway.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but there was an article, and the guy got hammered for it. Talking about, you know, I think 38% of the population drive electric vehicles. Okay. And the cost of electricity is so much. It's about $1 a kilowatt hour, which is about $100 to fully charge a Tesla in the United States. Our power grid is shot to hell. I mean, it's based upon half the population of the 1960s or somewhere thereabouts. Now, Andrew, you may know, but I know there's 3 power grids, East, West, and Texas. That's it.
Russ, you're missing the point with Norway. Did you ever see how gorgeous the Norwegian women are? They don't care if they break down in their cars.
Well, that's probably true. But with all that being said, I'm completely wide open. I know technology is going to continue to advance, just like AI. and it'll become much more mainstream. I don't know if it's going to get any more than 20% of the total market, but that's a big damn share of the market right there.
Yep.
There's a realigning going on. And like I said, any time those 9 words, I'm from the government and I'm here to help. I'm just telling you, go running, because it is a disaster every single time. Let the market dictate. Let the private sector dictate. I mean, I was so opposed to him. I would own one today. As a matter of fact, my wife wants one, and I'm going to let her have one. I'm completely okay with it. I really am.
Jason can make you a hell of a deal on a Mercedes. Hey, Mike, Larkin, and Wendy. I don't want to freeze them out, Peter. Mike and Wendy, what do you think?
Genie's out of the bottle, and as much pushback as the car dealers are giving on it, hey, it's a reality, and you can treat them as if they're the ugly stepchild, or accept them and go on with your business and make it a part of it. I talked to a guy this week who is really adamant about putting EV bikes and having them distributed as an opportunity for car dealers.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, hey, if you're going to reject it, reject it. But if you're going to have the opportunity and have it, then have it for your customers. I think it's a regional thing. The EV bikes, the bike trails of New England, or, the beaches of San Diego. I see that happening and being distributed by the car dealerships. Hey, it's an extra, profit in their pocket, or they can go, no, I don't agree with that. You got to conform, and the car industry has adjusted to COVID, and it can adjust to anything.
Mike, by the way, before we jump to Wendy, and when you finish, just to give you some perspective, I had a radio show when I had my caddy store, and one of the guys I interviewed was Malcolm Bricklin, the guy that did Subaru and brought the Yugo in. And I swear to you, I'm going back 20 years. He was talking then about an electric bike and bringing it to market, just to show you that a lot of what we think is new has been around. Wendy, I certainly don't want to leave you out. You know how much we appreciate you. What do you think?
No worries. So forgive me, because I had to step out of my car because they forgot to check my fluids. But can you still hear me outside? I'm sorry.
We sure can. You're doing great.
So I'm sorry I missed most of the call. Well, here's my thing. I'm not well educated on the data that all of you know, but I run on common sense a lot, and I run on the human side of everything. And I like thinking about, well, solutions. So what the hell is the problem? We're talking about ignorance, like Peter's talking about. We're talking about we don't know. What are we finding out from the customers? What kind of data are we compiling from actual EV owners? Me personally, I would love a hybrid, because I think it would be a great commuter car, like when I'm running around town. And if we're going on short trips, then I can use the electric thing and plug it in. Fine. If it was Fred, I'd have to remind him to plug it in, but it would be my car anyway. But I would love the savings. But more importantly, I love the idea of a potential way to soak up negative equity for buyers. So why don't we do something like, I don't know you, Andrew. I hope to get to know you in the future with BEV everything. I do know John Ellis, but what if we did pop-ups around our different dealerships and made community events and invited the EV owners to give their testimonies and have a barbecue and give them a free brat and a hot dog and a bag of chips, and then compile that data and make those videos and educate the public and educate the dealers and find out what the hell the people want, and let the dealers react. It's a great word for vehicle acquisition, but I can tell you, because of the ignorance, a couple of my dealers that have us doing outreach for private party acquisition from all the channels, they don't want to touch EVs. Nobody wants to touch them. And again, it's ignorance. So we need to find a way to educate them from the real life experiences that are out there. I mean, it was also a buzzword. I remember 12 years ago when one of my OEM franchises in our dealer rooftop was Nissan, and the Leaf came out, right? Or was it 09 maybe or something? I don't remember when it was. 09 maybe. Anyway, everybody loved it. Everybody wanted to drive it. Everybody thought it was the coolest thing, right? Well, to the point that it took 17 years for Tesla to turn a profit, absolutely positively. It's the same as any kind of startup. It's going to take time before you make a profit. But my point is, and then everybody wants to jump and they want to get on the EV bandwagon or whatever. But still, you know, if there's value in these EVs, even for acquisition, for getting people out of other situation, we are problem solvers. We're solutions expert. We you know, our buyers have buying needs, right? Automotive needs, and we fulfill those needs by providing solutions. We don't want to sell them that car. We want to bring them in for a needs analysis, for a meet and greet, for a road to the sale. We want to find the right vehicle at the right price with a payment they can afford, right?
Yeah.
So, so what if one of those is for negative equity is the acquisition of some electric vehicles to be able to absorb that equity? I mean, man, it's a win-win all around. So why don't we just put in the work, do some pop-ups, have somebody host them, do them around the country, so you get different demographics on the results from speaking to the people. And at the same time, you're pumping organic lead gen by putting all that stuff on your dealer website. I don't know. That's what I got.
I'm voting for Wendy.
It's funny because Mercedes-Benz actually gave us a chunk of money to actually hold a EV conference of sorts at the dealers, the
I
dealer
love
level.
it.
So
Good,
we are
good.
actually this coming up next month. We're having a cocktail hour of quasi of sorts for EV customers, people to come take a look at the EV Sprinter, the EQs and whatnot. We're kind of compiling all of it together to have a big old event, which is going
And
to be fun.
Jason, you'd
I
be,
tell you
you'd
what
be
would be
wise to
perfect.
reach out to Andrew and John Ellis and Duran Cage, because they certainly wouldn't hurt you. They're three of the nicest guys around, and you talk about knowing about EVs. That would not hurt you. And Andrew would do it in a second, wouldn't you, Andrew?
But
Yeah, I mean,
also, why don't you throw a human side of EV title on it? Throw Peter in the mix to fly around and help you host those events.
Yep.
And coordinate the testimonials and everything else. He's got a life full of knowledge about EVs, as well as knowing how to host events and push social and awareness and everything else. And golly, the human side of EV, you'd be onto something there.
I think,
do it, Jason.
I think that, Andrew, we need a lot more people like you that are sensible and that can reason and educate and help people understand and to come to some logical instead of highly emotional decisions. So I applaud you, everything you stand for and everything that you do.
Andrew, that was a compliment for
Thank you.
Russell.
Thank you.
Because he said we need more like you, and every time he's on with me, he says we need less like you, Feldman. Very sad.
Not.
Look, I think Russell, look, man, I think you're on it. And Wendy, you've made a lot of great points. And listen, I just want to touch on Wendy's point for a second and tell you, Jason, that Mercedes isn't that far off. And don't forget, there's some bad blood between Mercedes and Tesla, right? With the whole thing that went down with Elon back in the day. But I'll tell you, what I'll tell you is this, man. You know, obviously Tesla never, you know, advertises, right? They don't spend money on marketing, anything like that. And one of the things that we had to do at an expert level was have events, right? And execute events in the communities, execute them wherever we had to do them. And if you do them right, they can be very beneficial because, you know, Tesla obviously gears itself towards your clientele, BMW, etc. And now obviously they're going into the more affordable price point. But, you know, to Wendy's point, I think that, you know, when you really tie in the person, like the human part of everything, it's really where everything wins. When you break down how easy it is to do, you know, XYZ with an EV versus an ICE, you just break it down and be relatable. It all works out.
Right.
It all works out. You just have to be able to have the conversation. And what happens is that the whole concept of being able to be educated about EVs, it's not necessarily to sell EVs.
Yeah, you
it's
can
to
sell off
have
of
that
it or through
customer
it.
not leave your dealership because you built the trust on that conversation about the EV that you had, but you still sold them an ICE car.
Andrew, that's because all of a sudden the dealers forgot about the concept of a switch car or selling through something or off of something.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
And
trust me,
I think that's the biggest miss
not
right
all of
now.
a sudden. That's not all of a sudden. They don't know how to switch ICE or EV.
We didn't
That's another
even,
conversation.
yeah, it is.
That's a different show, Wendy.
Yeah. Well, here's another different show along the same line. What does it mean for the fixed side? It's an opportunity to take back what they've lost over the last 20, 25 years to the independents. Not that they're going to, but there's an opportunity. Okay. And one of the
100%.
opportunities is I hear everybody freaking out. Oh no, oil changes and we're not going to make it. No, tires are the next oil changes. It all depends on how you look at it. I mean, there's opportunity everywhere. It's everywhere. If the damn government would just get out of the way. But anyway, I digress.
Can
Hey,
I make
guys,
one last point? Sorry.
Please.
It's a really quick point. It's interesting because I know as vendors, when we approach dealers, they want to know who you're working with already. Who you, how many dealer groups or how many of this or how many of that, right? Because they want to talk to people that have, they're not going to check it anyway. They just want you to name drop. But anyway, so yeah, the idea that you get some humans involved and you get some testimonials and you get workshops and this and that and the other, I applaud you. I think that would be such a way. I just want to add a little icing on that cake that I think it would be of tremendous value to show both the dealers and the other buyers what the owners think, because it's going to satisfy both ends. It's going to satisfy their ignorance because they're all relying on data. They're like, show me the data, show me the data, show me the data. Where's the data compiled and by whom? And how really conclusive is it, given that a lot of the OEMs just started with EVs, right? So if it's all based on, but you can talk to owners and you can get, it's the same kind of as an OG on a team, right? Like Greenpeace salespeople don't know how to sell an appointment because they're used to it being where it has to be an inventory call and they want to buy that car because you couldn't bring them in unless you had a car for them. Well, now we're back to sell the options and the opportunities and sell the appointment, not the car. And a lot of people don't know how to do that. So get the testimonials, talk to the people, find out what the pulse is in the public, and then hopefully it might affect some change.
Excellent. Hey, listen, guys, ladies, we are so thrilled you all joined us tonight. Everyone is welcome back next Wednesday. We always try to keep it lively. Andrew, don't be afraid to drive. I invited John and Duran. Drag them on anytime you want. Everyone is welcome. Your input's welcome. And we appreciate everyone. And we thank you all for joining us tonight. It was
Great.
It was fun.
Great tonight. I just
want to add one last thing. Tomorrow will be Creative Career Paths for Women in Automotive on the Automotive Innovators and Disruptors call at 8 p.m. So it's going to be a unique show talking about all kinds of career paths, how we got in our various positions. I have Jamie Drabchek and our Volvo girl, Mabel Grada, as the two co-hosts. So
right on. It's going to be a great one. I'm looking forward to it.
Everybody stay healthy. Have a great night.
Have a great Labor Day weekend.
Thank you, Andrew.
Night, everybody.
Your
Have a
candor.
great
Thank you, Andrew.
holiday weekend,
Sorry.
everybody.
Welcome, guys.
Take
Enjoy.
care.
Have a good